Hello, I'm Dr David Dixon and I'm here to talk about my new book, which is called Leadership for Sustainability, Saving the Planet One School at a Time. I was a head teacher for 20 years of 3 different schools, 2 of which were in Newark, Bowbridge Junior School and then Bowbridge Primary School when they amalgamated. And I was very keen to introduce sustainability as a core activity in those schools, and I always had an interest in it from my training as a teacher way back. But even further back than then, as a child, I had a free-range childhood in rural Herefordshire, and I just liked the natural world. And I think as the years have gone by, I've just been despairing really at how we're trashing it through various means, and I think education needs to be a way of addressing that and doing something about it. Well, it is. I think education is fundamental to the solutions that we need as a species, because as the book sort of documents, without being too doom and gloom about it, we're actually going to hell in a handcart unless we get our act together as a species and live within the limits of the planet. At the moment, we're sort of living like there's literally no tomorrow. And so if we want to secure future generations, then we really need to do something about it now. And how better than to address it through education? Well, I'm not the only one that has come to this conclusion, and you can see good practice across the system of education where you've got school leaders and schools that are more than attempting to operate sustainable development and show that through their curriculum, their campus and their community, and using that as a means to show the children how they need to live really. But school leaders often can be prisoners of their own mind. They think that they haven't got flexibility, they think that they haven't got enough time to do this stuff, when in fact they have. And if they step out of their bubble and have a look at what they can do rather than what they can't do, there's an awful lot of flexibility there. And the one thing that I argue more than anything is that it's not just about being green and imposing greenism into your school. It can actually link to school improvement, as Ofsted would understand it. So it's not as though it's so outlandish that whoever implements it is seen as a complete lunatic. It's actually a better way of running a school through measures like Ofsted measures, but also through other measures like well-being and happiness of the pupils and staff and this sort of thing. So it ticks all the boxes really, but you have to have a different outlook in terms of what you want your school to do and how it can be run. Well, the first thing, and I mentioned this in the book, the first thing I did, which everyone thought was rather strange, was introduced a new concept known as a recycling bin and put it in the entrance hall and encouraged the children to bring in aluminium cans. This is back in 1995, just to give you an idea about where it started. Yeah. And of course the problem there was that the kids brought in lots of beer and cider cans. So we ended up with the entrance hall, which was quite small in those days, stinking of stale beer and cider. Yeah. But it did actually earn us a little bit, because there were companies in those days that would come around and collect your cans. And the business manager was very happy because we made a few quid on the side through the recycling. But then that was the first thing really, but then it started to then take off and be more fundamental in everything that we did. As I mentioned, the curriculum, what the children learnt about, how the campus operated, the school estate, in terms of the energy and the waste, the procurement, this sort of thing. And also the links to the community, how we could influence the community in sustainable ways, but also help them in tangible ways, such as addressing fuel poverty, so that if the children were learning about energy and how to save it and minimise it, they would take that knowledge home to parents. And we used to have competitions to see who could minimise their energy, and that helped the parents on a practical level, because a lot of them were fuel poverty. Yeah. Which means that they spend more than 10% on their energy. We were recognised nationally for this work, right, from the National College of School Leadership, Ofsted even. They mentioned it in our inspection report. So we we were showing that it could, let's say, link to conventional school improvement, as most people would understand it, but it had all these added extras that really meant that we were going in a different direction, but not an outlandish sort of direction. Well, we didn't actually come off the national curriculum. We just used it in a way that we wanted to, and it's quite, you've got the flexibility to do that. I wouldn't say it's not easy peasy, but it's certainly not beyond the realms of possibility.
Right. And
it links to creative curriculum and aspects of pedagogy which really enhance learning for the kids, which is the bottom line. So it links into all these sorts of positive things as well. And as for being a maverick, well, I've always thought it took a shorter time to say sorry than to ask for permission. So this has always been my mantra. So if you step over the line in terms of what the powers that be like, then you can always say, "Oh, I'm sorry about that," but you can do it anyway.
Sure.
And if you are covering your backs in terms of quality teaching and learning, then who can argue with it? Well, the quality, I think, of good leadership are many and varied. One is to actually spread your leadership to others and empower others. It's not all about a top-down heroic approach to leadership. Someone in a red cape who parachutes in and sorts things out. It's about trying to engage all the stakeholders of the school, governors and parents and kids and staff, and have a sort of ecological approach to it, and have everyone embark on a journey, albeit instigated by the ultimate leader, which might be the head teacher. But it's no good the ultimate leader then taking it all on and leading everyone by the nose, because that's not what it's all about. It's about convincing people and showing people that there is a way of running a school that is communal, and where responsibilities are shared, where there isn't a blame culture, where there's finger pointing all the time, and where people are happy in their work, whether they be children or staff, and having that sort of ethos within the school that permeates everyone, so that people aren't afraid to try things out for themselves. And if they don't work, okay, as long as they've tried in an honest way, then, as I say, there shouldn't be finger pointing and general blame culture within the school. So it's as I said, varied and nuanced, I think. And this is again what the book argues, to have this sort of ecological thinking and ecological type leadership that mimics nature. Because as we know, a rainforest is very complex, but it's very resilient. And I think you need to have a sort of rainforest type scenario in a school rather than a monoculture, because monocultures are susceptible to pests and other things much more readily than a rainforest is. Well, they were at many levels, and it means that kids get down and dirty with the environment. Right. They look at the urban environment as well as the natural environment. We had a little farm, and we had lots of vegetables being grown and used in the school kitchen, the kids were fired up, and they were little eco warriors themselves, and I think that I was very proud of that, really, because it gave them agency rather than them being passive learners. And a lot of the kids in the school to start with, they were very passive, and they expected to be spoon-fed, and it's not about spoon-feeding, it's about empowering. Well, I mean, it was on the back of lots of complaints from the school council, who sort of badgered us constantly about the quality of meals, about the amount of meals that there were, and also we were concerned because we hadn't got any control over the procurement of the food, where it came from, the food miles, this sort of thing. So it culminated in us biting the bullet and thinking, we need to do it ourselves then. So it meant having a cook that was well trained, and who was up for it, and she was at the time, and having a catering staff that was up for it, and they weren't happy either. And so it improved the quality of their lives because they had more control over what they did.
Right.
And we were able to source local food, and we were able to cater for the taste of the children more readily. and we managed to sort of convert more of the children to wanting sort of fresh produce rather than the sort of semi sort of junk food that was on offer before that.
Right.
And making sure the nutritional standards were up to speed as well. And we used the Food for Life project to help make sure that our food was up to a certain standard. And it worked a dream, and we had more children coming off packed lunches that were often pretty dubious in terms of chocolate bars and other sort of rubbishy food.
Yeah.
And a demand for them to have school lunches. And I think that was that the proof of the pudding, so to speak, was literally in the eating. Well, that's right. I mean, all good schools, I think, have a school council which isn't just rubber stamping exercise,
right?
Or they're sort of servants of the leadership of the school. They have their own agency, and they have flexibility, and they have a bit of clout as well. So at my last school, we had the school council part of the interviewing process for new staff, as well as really listening to them. And it's not coincidental that my last school also the school council lobbied for a change of caterers because they didn't like the school dinners either. So we did the same thing at my last school.
Oh, right.
And came out of the catering service and went almost totally vegetarian actually, and it went down very well. So they do need to be suitably empowered rather than just seen as an exercise in pupil voice that will tick an Ofsted box. Yeah, it was quite a deprived area, disadvantaged area, definitely top 10% of deprivation nationally. So we're talking about children coming from quite difficult backgrounds. They did, because we did find that at the start, well, when I went there to start with, they were very, very passive, or the other extreme, very aggressive and sort of kicked against us, and the parents did as well. So we were seen as an institution of authority that a lot of the parents didn't really like, along with the police and social services and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And as time went on, we changed that culture, or we changed that outlook amongst the school population, and so we were seen as part of them rather than apart from them. And I think that really helped our cause, because it meant that we could have other sorts of conversations with parents as to how they could help their children learn better at school as well as when they went home. Well, I mean, a lot of it occurs in science, technology, DT, geography as well, and also debating about all this within English, lots of creative writing, debating, making sure that you're able to put together a persuasive argument about these things. So critical thinking, all these really crucial skills came into it. So that children are discussing the issues surrounding the generation of electricity, as well as what electricity actually is.
Right.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it needed that sort of thing. So it was part of their normal topic work, and they needed research skills. They needed, like I was saying, critical thinking skills as well, to differentiate between the sorts of information that they were having. It integrates really well in all aspects of the curriculum. Well, it was interesting that in the London school, it was the time of the Olympics, 2012, we set up a scenario for our Year 2 classes, that they visited a local park where they did all sorts of nature studies, and we said to them, this park is going to be out of use soon because the Olympics are going to need it for one of the events, one of the show jumping events, and they need a bit more space, so they're going to have to cut down most of the trees. But it doesn't matter, because they can plant a few afterwards, so don't worry about it. And these kids were incensed. They'd known about this, they'd done detailed studies of this park, and they thought that having the trees cut down was just something else. They just couldn't believe it. And although it was a bit naughty of us to set up this sort of false scenario, we got all sorts of debate out of it, even from these quite young children.
Wow.
And it just showed that critical thinking can happen at a very early age, and in the end, you need to develop that further as they go up the school. Now, unfortunately, often critical thinking and that sort of way of going about education gets knocked out of kids as they move up the system, and then they have to relearn it again when they get to university if they go.
Yeah.
So we were trying to think, well, we need to embed this as they go up the school as much as anything else. Well, hopefully. I mean, I can't say that I was a perfect leader and that I created perfect schools.
No, sure.
But we were on a certain journey and had a certain philosophy behind it. And I'm offering this as a way of showing leaders that there is a different way, and that we actually need this different way because of the climate crisis and the biodiversity crisis, etc., that we're facing as a species. If we weren't facing these sort of challenges, then you could look at more incremental change in the education service and society generally. But we haven't got the time for that, really. So it's a sort of a rallying cry to school leaders to say, yes, you have got the power to change things for the better. It can be a bottom-up process. Schools can be very influential. It's not a case of propagandizing. It's a case of creating, critical thinkers and children and adults who want to do something about the situation that we're in. Just go for it, and you'll reap all sorts of rewards on the back of it. It's not just about sackcloth and ashes or doing without. It's actually enhancing quality of life and life chances. They can get it through various means. They can get it through the publishers, Crown House Publishing, or their sister organisation, Independent Thinking, or the normal online bookstores, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend, but it's there in case you want to use them.
It's there, yeah. We won't mention them either.
Or through my website, actually.
I was just going to mention that. What is your website?
It's drdaviddixon.earth.
It's just simple.
Yes, and there are a few extra blogs and other information that was on the cutting room floor from the book editing process. So there's some more stuff about sustainability and sort of think pieces on the website as well.
If you had to give a leader one piece of advice, what would it be?
It would be take courage in both hands and have a look at this sustainability malarkey really seriously, and look at it and think, could I implement this? And hopefully the answer would be yes.